This paper has three main aims. First, to clarify the concept of need via rebuttal of Amartya Sen's critique of need, which has been highly influential in motivating the move away from the basic needs approach to development and towards the capability approach. Second, to uncover the implicit role of needs in prominent capabilities theories and theories of well-being. In the process, third, to exhibit the significant advantages using the concept of need can offer. Sen's critique aims to demonstrate the alleged superiority of capability by pointing to certain alleged shortcomings of need. First, need in the concept of well-being and related evaluations of quality of life is an exclusively instrumental relation that defines a relatively minimal level of attainment. This is to say that needs are merely means to further ends, such as to a relatively minimal living condition. This is in contrast to capabilities, which are expansive and refer to the ends of life, what matters in its own right. To refresh, capability is a real freedom to achieve or perform a functioning, and a functioning is an end or activity beneficial or valuable to some person. Second part of the critique. A focus on needs cannot provide a sufficient role for freedom and human activity. The idea here is that needs are things people need to have, and having something is something passive. A focus on needs in development therefore treats people as mere patients or recipients of benefits. By contrast, capabilities refer to what people are enabled to do, plausibly a better conception of advantage and well-being, and a better objective for development. So runs the critique, and hence the title of Sen's book, Development as Freedom. The third part of the critique. Needs describe only the material preconditions for human life in general, but these vary in their usefulness to people, since the functionings they enable are differently valuable to different people. By contrast, capabilities and valuable functionings can matter to different persons to different extents. By extension, some capabilities may matter only to some people and not at all to others. I argue that the concept of need is not vulnerable to any of these criticisms, and in fact that it can be very useful for theorists working in a variety of existing frameworks, including in the capability approach, to draw on the concept of need. I should mention that Sen's target is specifically the notion of basic need. However, in popular and academic discourse, the concept of needs and basic needs are very often simply identified and used interchangeably. So I'm happy if Sen has other opinions about the general concept, because ultimately the target is not Sen as such, but common assumptions about need. Even so, Sen's critique is inaccurate even about its immediate target, the basic needs approach. It's correct about the urgent priorities of the basic needs approach in practice, because it was focused on delivering instrumentally necessary goods, namely the minimum material requirements for human life. However, the theory behind the basic needs approach is much richer than its early practice. Although the term basic might only suggest minimal, this isn't how it's intended. What is intended is more like fundamental in the sense of essential to living a distinctively human life. Basic needs, for basic needs approach theorists, encompass all of the necessary conditions and aspects of living what they term a full life. As I interpret it, this full life picture involves a form of necessity different from that of an instrumental means to a further end. This is because, as well as material means, the concept of a full life includes the non-material ends and purposes of life that are constitutively necessary. That is, these non-material needs are necessary for their own sake, as necessary parts of living a full life. Looking at the real nature of basic needs theory, we can also rebut the second argument that needs cannot include appropriate concern for freedom and activity. First, notice that there's no conceptual limitation on needs merely to having things. There are also many things we need to do. Perhaps there are also ways we need to be. Second, freedom and needs are not mutually exclusive. The basic needs approach already introduces the idea that freedom is necessary. If a full life requires freedom and activity as necessary parts, then development requires not only ensuring people have certain goods, but creating space in which they can actively pursue important goals themselves. People need that space. I haven't been trying to defend the basic needs approach to development as such, or basic needs as conceived within it, but rather to illustrate the flexibility of the concept of need. What the discussion demonstrates is that instrumental needs are not the only kinds. Some needs are constitutive of a good life. We can have needs not only to have goods and possessions, but also needs to do certain things. And plausibly, that freedom and activity are necessary parts of a full life. So the first and second of Sen's criticisms miss their target. Now, it may be true that freedom is best conceived as it is in the capability approach, not as a separate value or dimension, as in certain basic needs proposals, but in terms of individually valuable freedoms to specific activities, that is to say, capabilities. However, needs can easily be accommodated by a capabilities theory, and in fact implicitly already often are. I need to make clear that the proposal is not at all that needs are better than capabilities, nor any criticism of the concept of capability. They're discrete concepts. Neither is contained within or explained by the other. The proposal is that there's an overlap between the concepts that is important, which we can easily allow. We can allow that some needs are capabilities, or equivalently, that some capabilities are necessary, and so at the same time needs. We can see this in this diagram. We can also see in the diagram that not all capabilities are needs, so there are non-need capabilities, and that the category of needs also contains functionings, and that there are other functionings that are not needs. So this is the main proposal of the talk. Needs and capabilities are compatible, and moreover, that the notion of a necessary capability can be helpful. I use some examples to illustrate how in some theories capabilities are implicitly already treated as necessary, and how it could be useful to explicitly acknowledge them as needs. First, we have the notion of a basic capability in the evaluation of poverty, and here some connection with needs is openly endorsed. A basic capability is defined as a capability to meet a basic need, where basic is equated with minimal, unlike in the basic needs approach as we've seen. In fact, however, as a matter of logic, there is a tighter connection than even this. If possessing some threshold basic capability is necessary to not be in poverty, then a basic capability is itself also a need, however we might also otherwise describe it. The set of basic needs for poverty evaluation, then, is best represented as including both basic necessary functionings and basic necessary capabilities. It's worth pointing out, though, that if we do want to reserve the term basic need for requirements that are minimal in some way, again unlike the basic needs approach, then we should allow that some needs, those which are non-minimal, be called non-basic needs. Martha Nussbaum uses a notion of central capabilities in her theory of justice, certain functionings that are particularly central in human life, in the sense that their presence or absence is typically understood to be a mark of the presence or absence of human life, such that, beneath a certain level of capability in each area, a person has not been enabled to live in a truly human way, a life that is worthy of the dignity of the human being. This sounds very close to the basic needs approach's full life concept. It sounds like these are constitutively necessary of a distinctively human life, in exactly the same way. We also see that for Nussbaum, central capabilities are incommensurable, in the sense of non-substitutable. Each and every one of a plurality of these distinct goods is of central importance. We cannot satisfy the need for one of them by giving a larger amount of another one. Thus, whether or not Nussbaum would like to call it such, we see that her theory is a theory of needs, of capabilities constitutively necessary for a full life. We see that needs have explanatory power. That certain goods are all necessary parts of a good life can explain why they should be on a list of especially important capabilities, or central components of well-being or advantage, or a standard of poverty, or so, and so on. Necessity also explains why such goods or dimensional attainments could be non-substitutable. If nothing else will do as well as X for some purpose Y, then X is necessary for Y, and vice versa. If X is necessary for Y, then there is no substitute for it, for the fulfillment of Y, that is. These are ways theories can draw on the concept of needs in their explanations. I now turn to Sen's third criticism of need. James Griffin puts the supposed drawback of needs well. Needs theories, he writes, rest on a distinction between, on the one hand, things that we aim at simply as normal human beings, rather than as the particular human beings we are, and, on the other hand, things that, as the individuals we are, we choose to go for. For this reason, needs might seem inappropriate for representing aspects of well-being or advantage that plausibly vary between different people. As many would think, all aspects of well-being over and above a poverty line. As Sabina Alkira puts the point, theorists like her and Griffin want to allow for the possibility that individuals may be flourishing, even if one or more dimensions is not valued or present very much in their lives and commitments. However, while needs theories do commonly hold that all people have the same needs, it's simply not true that a needs theory must propose that one size fits all. We can easily allow that different people need different things, not only in terms of resources required to achieve given ends, but also that they have different ends they need to pursue in their lives. This seems a natural thing to say if we're not in the grip of the preconception that needs are identified with minimal basic needs. It can easily be accepted that the necessary constituents of a good life vary across persons. The concept of need can in fact be useful for conceptualizing people's personal values. If we want, with Griffin for example, to distinguish between people's relatively trivial desires and other values that, while also personal, are qualitatively more important for them. For example, central commitments and life goals, where, unlike desired objects, generally they choose us, as Griffin puts it. In the paper I illustrate how need can in fact lend crucial support to the idea that there are such distinctively important values. Indeed, I show that it's difficult for Griffin to avoid implicitly admitting that personal values are necessary for the person's well-being, despite his official disavowals of the concept of need. This talk leaves out some important parts of the paper, but I'll end here with a summary of some of the contributions the concept of need can make. As just mentioned, need distinguishes serious from relatively trivial values. Some of these we can allow to vary from person to person. Employing need can aid the selection of dimensions, functionings, or capabilities. That is, help to identify which aspects of advantage or well-being to regard most important and to focus upon in some application. Need can also help us to explain why certain dimensions, functionings, or capabilities can be incommensurable or non-substitutable by each other and by other goods.